among friends for sure. And a lot, too. Wow. You know, I've given a couple speeches in the past, and one of the things that I talk to libertarian groups about is being active and having meetings and promote the cause. But I said, if you do get together, one rule that I'm going to pass on to you is you should have a lot of fun doing it. And it sounds like you are. This is just great. And Angela, I want to thank you very much for the introduction as well as running this campaign, this convention. That's a job and a half. So, but it is wonderful to be here because there's a lot of enthusiasm here. I have one curious question I do want to ask. Most of you know that I was a nominee for the Libertarian Party in 1988. But you might not know that I signed up as a lifetime member, and I paid in gold. So I am delighted to be here, and thank you very much for the invitation. I think really if I had a theme for what I want to talk about is the fact that the empire has ended. That's good news for us. You know, one thing people have a controversy about is conspiracies. Now, I'm all for conspiracies, but I have one little thing to add. I only want to hear the true conspiracies, which most of them are true. It is so important, you know, to know what we believe in, and that's my emphasis. I often wonder, you know, when I went to the college campuses and talked to a lot of individuals during the presidential campaigns, that they would hear from me. You know, you'll probably hear a little bit of that from me tonight, and that is the fact that there's a problem out there, a big problem out there, and it wasn't created by you, it was created by, guess what, politicians in Washington that need to be removed. But I divide the activities into two places. One is the philosophy that we have, and then the whole idea of what's going on with politics. And there's too often a division there. And the one thing is that the competition, we should be doing a lot better than we're doing as libertarians when you think that the competition isn't all that smart. I mean, you have a couple of what they call big parties, but do they have a philosophy? It's one thing we can say about libertarians. At least we have something to believe in, liberty. You know, we have the philosophy that we seek and talk about, but we also have political activities. And that to me is a contest between what the people are thinking and saying, and how do you change the government. And you know, there are some sinister groups out there that, you know, they want to change the government too, and they want chaos in the streets, and they're promoting all the nonsense, almost everything opposite of what we believe as libertarians, because the chaos is here. And that is what I'm saying. The empire really has ended, and it has been systematically replaced by the chaos for the sole purpose of improvising a system of government 100% opposite of libertarianism. And that we have to stop. You know, I wrote a little pamphlet recently, and I dealt with the idea of this whole idea that the empire has ended, and it's concluding that ending, and those individuals who wanted philosophically believe, the Marxists believe you have to destroy something in order to replace it with something good like socialism. So they purposely want that. They want the chaos of the street. Because I've had a dilemma over the years. Why are the people, the government, and the people going on with so many stupid things? And it finally dawned on me, that's exactly what they want. And of course, that's what we have to change. But this is not new. It's happened throughout history. But instead of looking at that and crying about it, and complaining about it, we try to explain it. But we want to make sure that we understand the value in it too and what we can do with it. That puts a greater burden of responsibility on us because they've destroyed, the remnant of what we had, that the founders had, with some emphasis on liberty. And now there's a vacuum out there. And they're planning on moving in. And when you look at wokeism, unfortunately, they've been pretty darn successful, a lot more so than they should be, and we should confront the wokeism and get rid of it. That's what I would really do. I happen to believe that this all got in full motion, just within several decades. And that it puts us back to 1963. I was a medical resident in 1962, and the Cuban crisis came up, and I got that little notice from the government. It said, come along, we own you. My claim is that the two things that will make you a slave is if you accept the military draft and the income tax. Woo! Because if you look at the income tax, they tax our income, and then they say, what do you mean? It's not the government's. They have a monopoly on it because you can't spend any of it, until the government gives you permission. And that is, of course, why high on the list ought to be, and I am sure it is in a crowd like this, that if we expect to ever see some significant changes toward liberty, we will be getting rid of the IRS for sure. Of course, understanding the military draft is easy to see, especially if you remember or read the history of the 1960s. What a tragedy, but that's been going on ever since. We play these games, but we're still sending troops to death by going overseas and participating and incorporating other people into the activities that we do. So this to me is a major thing. And it's easy. We can visualize it. We know exactly what we would do with the IRS and the income tax. But then there is another tax that has to be understood, because the likelihood of us in the near future of getting rid of the IRS is not very good. But the fact that groups like this and others are growing in their understanding and their desire to do something about the tax that is the most vicious and the most destructive, and that is the inflation tax signed by the Federal Reserve. I didn't even have to convince you of that, did I? And I have a little book that says that in the Fed, how to get rid of the Fed. But I remember when it dawned on me what I should title the book, and it occurred when I was at a liberal university, thinking that, and I had a decent crowd out, which was to my surprise, because we did pretty well getting a mixed crowd out, and there was on college campuses, I think it was the University of Michigan, and we were talking my usual talk, and I alluded to, without much emphasis, and all of a sudden, there was starting to be chants in this liberal university. They started chanting "End the Fed." I said, where did they come from? So that was a delight to know that happened. But the inflation tax is evil, really evil. It's a little harder to see than the income tax. But the inflation tax is to finance all the deficits right now, and that is totally out of control. I mean, it's spending every single day, it's increasing. We can't even hardly pay, get enough money to pay the interest on the debt. It's so bad. That's part of the end of the empire. The end of the empire is coming, and that is good, but we're not going to let those Marxists pick up the pieces. That will be our job to pick it up and give them a dose of liberty. There are some people who talk about coups. There's been coups around, and the United States are the champions. We've committed more coups in the last 30 or 40 years than probably anybody in history. And because if you look back, even as recent as Ukraine, that involved an American coup in NATO to stimulate all that mess. But there's a lot of people that think that 1963, matter of fact, I think that it's very clear that there was a coup in 1963, and we're suffering from it ever since. And I was a resident at the Haverford Hospital when I was drafted in draft notice in November, and finally had to go in by January. But that was an experience that made a difference in my life, because the day before Kennedy was assassinated, and I was on Kelly Air Force Base, and Kennedy had stopped there, and I was the flight medical officer on the base there. But that had a big impact, because it was like less than 24 hours as he left the base at Kelly Air Force Base that he was killed in Dallas. But that wasn't the only thing, the biggest thing. I mean, it was just out of control. And then, as the history has evolved, and I have come to the conclusion, as many of you probably have, that over all these years, the whole lie told about Oswald, the single shot business, turns out, in my opinion, was a filthy lie. But of course, that was followed by another Kennedy being assassinated, Martin Luther King being assassinated, and on it has gone. And the thing that really put it into my mind that this is a coup and it's been taken over was, immediately after the John Kennedy assassination, there was all the plans made for, an investigation. And they had the Kennedy Commission, I guess it was another name on that, but the commission was set up, and it turns out that I've come around to believe that the key kingmaker of the coup was Allen Dulles. But guess what? When they had the commission, he was on the commission to investigate it, to cover up the lies. I've been convinced over the years of all the commissions, whether it's 9/11 commission or whatever. When you hear about commission, you say, good, at least they're investigating. Now, that doesn't happen. It's either to cover up stupidity or cover up their tracks, because they're not seeking truth. And that's our problem in this country, is the lack of truth. The lack of truth and knowing what's going on. And it is so bad that right now we're seeing the conclusion of this, the destruction of the Republic, the destruction of the Department of Justice, the destruction of our whole concept of our government, our republic. It doesn't exist under these conditions. But I do not want myself to even drift out and say, oh, how horrible, which it is. It's horrible, because it's so horrible. But I'm looking for something to grasp. And the grasp is they destroyed it, yes, for the wrong reason. Their motives are evil, and they're going to use it unless this group of people and thousands more do something about it and replace it with liberty. There's a lot of political activity in various parties. There's independents, and we work within a party, the Libertarian Party. So, but there are others that feel very frustrated, and I think they're sincere, but they're very confused. And one thing, it's a pet peeve with me, but I also think what they're doing isn't too smart, and that is that they want the party of no labels. No labels. That means you don't even know what it is. No labels. You have to label something. So now the label is no labels. And I say no sense either. But they claim that this satisfies the demand for perfect democracy. Everybody gets to vote, everybody gets to participate. So they think it's a way to democracy. They advertise it as being bipartisan, bringing people together. And this to me just isn't true. I don't believe they see this with honesty too, bringing people together. So if you have a reasonably or a good constitutional conservative, and you have a good progressive Democrat on the other side, and both of them have a piece of the understanding of the real message, and you say, well, how are we need to bring them together. But they bring them together, these two, by the two parties giving up the true good beliefs and coming together with all this compromise and sellout. So I think one of the worst things I could see is, there was something this week. Oh yeah, we just passed this thing with a bipartisan vote. That's bad news. So I think we should have labels. I think we should have understanding. And I think it's just great that we have a philosophy that is so wonderful, the philosophy of liberty. It's not something we invented. It's been around for a good while. A lot of confusion comes and goes. People have different opinions. But, some of the basics of this philosophy existed for a long, long time. Sumeria, the country of Sumeria, was the country supposed to have the first written laws in the land. And even before that, people knew a couple basics. They have rules and punishment for people who would lie, cheat, and steal, and kill. That's a good rule. That sounds like non-aggression principle. So this has been going on for a long time. That's 4,000 to 5,000 years ago, which means that there is, I believe, my personal belief is that there is a natural law and there's a higher law, and it's been available to all of us. We can understand it, it has been, but there's a contest going on. It's gone on for years, hundreds of years, thousands of years, and that is there's always a people who are in denial for selfish, evil reasons, because they say, Well, you can't know that. You can't know that. So, so the evil there is very, very apparent. So I think it's easy for us to say, what are we going to do to fill the void? And because I would say each and every one here has a responsibility. And I think people come up after I've given talks, and there'll be some college students come up and they would say, Dr. Paul, I heard that. It's a great message. I agree with you. What should I do? You know what my answer is? You probably have heard it. Do whatever you want to do. Because I believe that despite the level of the amount of education people have, there's always some talent out there. Some people have musical talent, and I'm jealous because I wish I could sing, but I can't. So I sing the Song of Liberty. That's about the best I can do. But everybody has talent, and it should be used in a different way. But if you come to the conclusion, and if you come to a convention like this, you ought to leave with enthusiasm of understanding where the real problem is, and that instead of looking at everything that's going on in a dire manner. I was in Washington for 26 years, and they said, how did you stand it with all those clouds up there? I said, well, I had low expectations. And the expectations, you know, were just reality. You know, I was motivated to get into politics over the Federal Reserve and the money issue because that supplies the incentive to get involved in welfareism and warfareism and the whole works. So that to me was very important. So the whole issue of the monetary issue was a big thing. So I got, you know, involved in that. But I finally found out, as I studied more, is that it's all tied together. One time we were having a presidential debate, and the host, the interviewer said, oh, this week we're going to talk about economics. Next week we're going to talk about foreign policy. I said, they're the same. How do you think you fight wars without the Federal Reserve printing money? But I do still believe it is a battle between good and evil. And some people put that into a religious, spiritual view, but some people can do that as just good old logic that it's very, very natural for some people to wake up and come across, just like the Sumerians did 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, that they knew the difference. You shouldn't lie, cheat, steal, or kill. That sounds libertarian. So, you know, we should be able to, you know, rely on natural law. But, matter of fact, that is detested wholeheartedly by those authoritarians. If the authoritarians are competing with the people who believe in liberty, the authoritarians, they do not. Do you know that authoritarians don't like you? Because you are a threat to them. And that's the way it is Washington, D.C. That's one of the reasons you see so few. And we do have, I don't think, from my experience in Washington, I don't think that gradualism is going to all of a sudden give us a magic cure to what we have. That is, elect 10 more good guys, 10 more here and there, and we should. The more voices we have, the better. But that's not going to be the way the budget's going to get balanced. The budget is so out of control, and there's so much misunderstanding and lies that go around, That can't happen. So are all the, will the wars stop after my experience there? No, they're going to continue. They'll just lie more about it, be more deceitful about it. And if they say, if you oppose any wars, you're unpatriotic and you're un-American and you hate the truth. And that ought to change, because the attitude ought to be that when you're fighting for liberty, that you're credited with some good things that are happening. That is what we should be doing. When I was doing the national campaigns, I had a statement that would alarm some people at times, because they went, oh, why should we elect you? I said, you should elect me because of the things I don't want to do. I don't want to run your life. I wouldn't know how anyway. It's all your business. And I said, I don't want to run the economy because it's impossible. You can't do it because there's different opinions. People might want to spend their money for something else. And I don't run the world because it's the dumbest idea in the world, and that's how you fight wars constantly. So we need to get more people saying what they won't do and don't think we should do. But of course, the flip side of that is we want to protect your liberty. Oh, but the people say, some sincere people will come and say, we like what you say, but they're not going to take good care of themselves, and we won't have any retirement or whatsoever. So that worries them. But frequently on the college campuses, what I'd say, that is true. But what I want to do is, you're not going to have taxes. You're not going to regulate. Your life is your own, and that sounds very, very good. But I always tell them, and I got a lot of applause for it. And I said, and if you get your freedom back, and if you make a mistake, you can't go crying to the government, and you can't get your neighbor to go to the government to get what you want. You have to be responsible for your activity. Well, the wonderful thing about the principles of liberty is that they are so beneficial. It still bewilders me why we're not doing better. We have to do better, because it's so overwhelming that what they're doing, you would think, and if you can't get enough, if you're in Texas and you can't be convinced of how bad things are, you could go visit a couple other states on what really is happening. Things are bad, but they can always change. It changes, and people say, well, it's not changeable. And like my message here is, it's not going to change under today's condition. The bankruptcy is going to get worse, and the chaos is going to be there. But we have to know, what the problems are, and be willing to admit it. They say that the most dreaded enemy of those in big government is just somebody telling the truth. We saw a little bit of that during COVID, the COVID fake epidemic. But there would be people. That's just an introduction to what they want. They're already talking about the next virus, so be aware. So, but there were meetings held, PTA and school board meetings and all, and by that time, people were becoming irate, and groups would go, but it took one person sometimes to stand up and say, this is a lot of you-know-what, and we don't need to do this, and convert the whole audience because they were feeling the same thing. That's why one voice is very, very loud. And I also make the point that you do need a large number. You need a prevailing attitude about the people. Unfortunately, especially since the coup occurred, the attitude is that welfareism and everything is what we need, and things are going to be better. But that will not work. The coup has convinced people that they're right. But right now, it's obvious more and more people, I think that's sort of what's going on with the election, more people are realizing that the lies have been told. And it is recognized that the one thing they can't stand in Washington is somebody that will just tell the plain truth. But there are a lot of things that can't be done, and like I say, every individual has a responsibility. And I think people realizing that there's a contest between philosophy and also the people who tell lies. It's epidemic, there is no doubt about it. But I'm still convinced, though, that if people are exposed to the truth and know what's happening, the numbers of people, the percentage of people are more on our side than on the side of tyranny. Let me tell you, but we get message out. You know, one of the things that we're having a tougher time with now is the destruction of the Department of Justice. That's a department of evil injustice. Can you imagine the FBI going to the Trump's house where he lived and going in there, and FBI was going in there ready to fight it out with Secret Service. I would say there's not much left to a republic, you know, if that's the case. And people don't even like before you use that word, but they like to use democracy. But the democracy, the one thing I think we should work harder at, and I'm sure an audience like this already knows it, but democracy is nothing more than the dictatorship of the majority. But you know, that is the whole thing. The dictatorship of the majority is so bad, and why do we lose the argument against people who think they should have a fair shake? They're in a minority, all that happens. If you let that go, all they do is become victims. You know, it's controls they have to have. Now we have to worry about DEI and ESG and all those rules and regulations. I thought there was one this week that should convince a lot of us, you know, that we should be very cautious about that. When we saw it happen, I think it was in California, a medical school studied this medical students that were appointed for diversity reasons. And half of them didn't know what they were doing. And they're our medical students now. I would say get the government out of medicine, education, the whole work. Well, that is wonderful, and I, you know, really get encouraged. People say, boy, it's hard work coming out there and talking to people like this. I said, I need to do it. I want to know you exist. and you do, and there are others. So continue to be more creative and get the groups together. I remember the first campaign was, I guess, in 07, 08. The computer just was started, and they came up with this thing. I don't know what it was. I still don't know a whole lot about it. But it was called a meetup groups. It was spontaneous. People met together in communities, and it was a perfect campaign, you know, organization. You go to the meetup people, and if they happen to like you, they would just become part of the campaign. So there's so much knowledge. Technology is wonderful. I like the technology, but I have a strong warning. Technology is good when it's used by honest people, and it can be very, very dangerous when it's run by the government. some people who are actually involved in some of the technology, they go to the government thinking they'll get credibility. And we have to talk to the SEC and to see the whole work and talk to the people that are writing the regulations. And that's the way they will, have an influence. Well, the influence has to be, you people shouldn't exist. What we need to do is get rid of you and let the market decide who's going to make it. Wonderful. I am going to close by thanking you. Thanking you very much for my invitation. Thank you very much because I get encouraged. That's why I come here. I come here because I'm very selfish, because I benefit by meeting you and talking with you and knowing that you want to end the Fed.